Without further ado, I'm going to introduce Morgan Knox. She is over at the PPN, the Pro Painter Network, and I'm sure she'll tell you much about what's going on over there. And we're excited for what she's got to say about AI. And yeah, so Morgan, go ahead, take it away. It's all yours.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Eric, I loved that presentation. You're really speaking my language on a lot of the copywriting stuff too. I
I'm
love that.
I'm ready for you to tell me everything I said on AI is wrong. So
I can challenge some assumptions on the copywriting there, but I wouldn't say that you're wrong. I think that there's a lot of things that you mentioned, especially about how so many things are starting to sound the same. And I think a lot of people were mentioning, and I think we can all say that there's been a really big sense in the industry lately, and people are feeling that in general, lead generation costs for a lot of digital marketing have been really jumping up this year. It's been getting a lot more expensive. Conversions have gotten a lot trickier. And I think a lot of that is because so many people, so many agencies are using these AI generated copywriting and things like that. So it all sounds the same and it's all getting really, really competitive. So
yep, definitely.
good stuff. Well, without further ado, let me see if I can jump into the screen share here and see if I can get this one to work with you guys. All right. So all you guys in the chat, I should be dropping through screen share of Canva of a slide deck presentation. If you guys can see it, can you drop an emoji or something in the chat? Let me know that you guys are able to see that. Also really curious on what coast are you guys joining in from? What time zones, I guess, is what I'm interested in. Where are you guys coming in from? I'm on the West Coaster train over here. So I feel like we got tagged in early if you're joining from the West Coast for this West Coast time zone start for a webinar. Good to see you guys. Ron, good to see you from LA. So we're feeling the caffeinated beverages over here on the West Coast. Awesome. So I'm glad you guys can all see this. This is actually an interesting example of some AI in action. One of the things I'm going to talk about today is like tools that have AI integrated in them. My focus for today's presentation, unfortunately, I don't have the time, the runway here to dive really, really deep into how-tos on specifics with ChatGPT. Although I did put some prompting how-tos and some best practice kind of notes in here, and I will get you guys access to the slide deck before I sign off. So you guys could jump on in there, and I've got a couple of cool places online, like a Facebook group that you guys can hop in on to join for more walkthroughs and more detailed stuff. So today's presentation is really going to focus on the landscape of AI in business, and especially how it's impacting contracting businesses right now. And I want to give you guys some information about where to look for things that are going to help you in the business, that are going to add leverage to the things that you're doing day in and day out, and give you a little more perspective, hopefully, on how this is going to be impacting you and how you should be thinking about it, embracing it, learning how to adapt to the impact that AI is having on all of us. So I like to call this AI craft for contractors. But kind of the central theme here too is we have a Facebook group called AI craft for contractors. If you're interested in this as a topic, that's a great place to join us. That's not a painting specific Facebook group. That's a contracting specific Facebook group. So there's some really, really cool stuff that people post in there. And throughout this slide deck presentation, you guys are going to see a lot of imagery that was actually created with AI that I created. So a little bit of info about this. So what we're going to be talking about today is why AI, why should you care about this artificial intelligence? Couple of different, like I said, images in here that I've created over time, playing around with things. Why should you care about AI? Because it's unlimited cosmic power at this point, you guys. As Jafar would say, we're after as much leverage as we can get in our businesses. So that's why I personally have gotten really, really interested in AI for business development applications for contractors. So a little bit about me, I'm a coach and a consultant in the contracting space. A lot of you guys might have been familiar with me when I was a managing partner over there at Bookkeeping for Painters. That's how I really got a solid foothold and platform in the painting industry. In my role over there, I was really working as a fractional CFO for a lot of years. And I eventually exited from that position and transitioned into doing more coaching and consulting work. And all of the focus of my coaching has always been with a really intent interest on what are the leverage points in our business. And by that, I mean, what are the things and where are the areas that we can apply one amount of effort and get 10 times the impact on the other side. So there's a lot of different strategic components to that and business development, but a really huge part of it is tools and technology. They're a really big thing that add leverage. So I've been really obsessed in kind of a nerdy way with AI for a long time. And the AI technology that we're going to be talking about today and that we're dealing with is in a really interesting zone, because kind of my claim to expertise here is that I've been deep in the weeds and working with a lot of this stuff for a year and a half, compared to most people who have been working with it for maybe 60 days or maybe 4 months. This is one of those areas where the technology has become so rapidly developed and is actually so recent that we really have this kind of interesting phenomenon where really experts in this space and experts in this technology have been in it for, a couple of years as opposed to decades. So all of that to say, what I'm really going to be chatting about with you guys today is the realm of AI tools and technology that has been around longer than a lot of the more rapidly developed and newer things. It's not hyperbolic. It's not an exaggeration to say that this technology is innovating so rapidly and becoming developed so rapidly right now that you literally can't keep up with all of the things that are happening in this space. So my big focus has been trying to stay really, really plugged into the things that are more well-developed and more polished so that they are easier for you as a business owner to actually leverage and utilize, because there's been more practice with them. They've been more trained. We'll just kind of keep on that train of trying to keep the trends in your hands and applied to your businesses in all of the ways that are relevant. So you should care about AI because it's going to let you do 10 times more with half the effort in a lot of places in your business. It's a massive leverage point for you guys. You have to stay plugged into AI if you want to stay competitive in today's market. So a lot of people will ask me, what's the big impact on this? Why should I care? And you should care because this is permeating everything in the business landscape right now. It is impacting all industries, some much more quickly than others. And it's raising the bar and how everyone needs to show up in business in order to stay competitive. So kind of like Eric mentioned, one of the impacts is that, a lot of people are getting into this and some things are starting to sound more similar. There's a little bit of a normalizing effect that's happening. That means that if you're really good with these tools and you have a really good competency in business, you can stand out. You're going to be able to excel and do better than ever. But it also means that the bar is being raised for the standards that you need to show up in. And AI is a really, really big part of that. And the third piece of this is because of the fact that AI is permeating all the different elements of the business landscape, whether you feel like you're interested in directly jumping in and using AI tools or not, all of the professionals that you're working with, the people that you hire, really great experts in marketing, in coaching, in tech development, your software stack, all of those different elements, entities, and professionals are using these tools. And it's really important for you to stay informed enough about what that means and how it's impacting those industries and professions so you can be a better manager, right? That's one of those executive leadership functions. Know what you're paying for, know what you're getting, kind of like we were talking about. It's really obvious, especially in the digital marketing space, where some people are leaning maybe a little too heavily on some of these tools and they're kind of phoning it in. And you need to understand and be able to identify those kinds of things so that you can be a little bit wiser with where you apply your dollars. So how exactly does it impact you? As my friend Jason Paris likes to say, he's just a humble painter from flyover country with a paintbrush and a dream. So how does this impact me? Why should I really care? A couple of things. So in the realm of AI, I think what we're really seeing on a business impact level and an industry impact level is we're seeing some really big differentiations now between sitting jobs versus standing jobs. And this is why in the contracting space, we should be especially plugged into this conversation. For a really long time, we were concerned about robotics coming for all of the kind of manufacturing and all of the mechanical and the physical skill oriented jobs. But in the last few years, we've really seen this massive inversion and this flip where now it's very, very apparent that actually the technology is coming for all of the sitting jobs and the white collar work and the knowledge work first. So all of the industries that are having the most massive upset because of these AI tools are exactly what I call sitting jobs. You know, they're people who sit at an office, they're people who are focused on research, and everyone who does standing jobs, people who work with their hands, people in the skilled trades, are in a position now to take advantage of some of the leverage that's offered by these tools, but we're not being impacted nearly as much. And at a time when skilled labor is becoming shorter and shorter, so it just means that there's significantly more value in the work that we're doing in the skilled trade space than there ever has been before, at a time when all of these sitting jobs are actually seeing a decrease in the value of the work that they're doing because of the fact that a lot of these AI tools are letting one person do 10 times as much effort. So that's just a really interesting way of kind of setting the landscape for how you guys can think about, you know, the impact that this is going to have on your business overall. The work that you're doing is going to continue to be more and more valuable. It's not going away, but AI can help you do it better than ever and show up in the market better than you ever have before. So when we're talking about AI, just kind of a quick understanding of a little bit, some terms that we're using. There's a couple of different things that you want to keep in mind. So there's what we call Gen AI or generative artificial intelligence. And that's really the foundation of most of the tools that we're going to be working with. So kind of a quick and dirty summary of generative artificial intelligence. These are predictive models that are really good at creating some kind of creative deliverable. So this is text generation, this is image generation. These are things like voice cloning. These are things like animation, really smart chatbots that you can train on different documents or knowledge bases. And they become really smart. And they, because of how powerful their predictive elements are, they can get really good at acting as an expert and teaching you things and doing research. So generative AI is really the realm that most of us are working in when we're talking about a lot of these tools. Artificial general intelligence, AGI, is kind of still that horizon of of artificial intelligence that we've been fascinated by as a species for a really long time. This is Skynet, right? This is the idea of an artificial intelligence that's actually human-like in how it thinks. So I'd be really curious, you guys drop into the chat, tell me what is your favorite example of an artificial intelligence from sci-fi? What's your favorite exposure to the concept of artificial intelligence? This is one of those things where there's a lot of debate about how close we are to it. There's a little bit of areas of overlap between some of these generative AI tools and what people think actually look like signs of a true artificial intelligence. So that's just sort of an interesting background here. But what we're really dealing with when we're talking about these tools is not quite Ex Machina level. It's not quite Skynet level. It's not quite David from the Alien movies. The Alien movies are some of my favorite sci-fi franchises. But it is still really intelligent and really, really good at augmenting all of the things that we're trying to do in business. The final little note here, if you guys ever want to dig a little bit deeper or you're kind of curious, there's this thing that we call RPA, robotic process automation. And the idea here is it's virtual machines. It's automation, it's Zapier. It's those mechanical pieces that move information back and forth, that tie all of the, Westworld Vents is one of the favorites. RPA, robotic process automation, is just like those virtual machines that are tying all of these pieces together. So when we get into a lot of these AI enabled tools that I want to show you guys, which is really the realm that I think is most useful for us as business owners, robotic process automation being leveraged in tandem with this generative AI is really where we're going to see the most impact in our businesses, because it's pulling all of the pieces together and just creating a lot of efficiencies where there otherwise would have been a ton of manual effort for us, right? All right, so here are some examples of some of the higher level or maybe more, a little more skill required tools if you want to jump into sort of the deep end of the pool with some of these generative artificial intelligence tools. So most of you guys probably heard about ChatGPT. ChatGPT really became widely publicly available around the end of November of last year, which is where I'm coming from when I say that there's a lot of recency to this as an area of tools and an area of expertise. And ChatGPT is kind of like, the godfather, the granddaddy of jumping into these tools and getting to work with it. So it's a chat-based platform. You go in and you ask it questions and you ask it to do things, or you tell it to do things, and you get responses out. Since it's chat-based, it's really, really great. And it's one of the tools that I use the most for things like copywriting, email writing, translating things. It's really, really great at writing code, actually. So anybody who wants to dabble in software development, or we've seen some really, in terms of going after the sitting jobs, going after the software developers, we've seen some really big upset in the development space because it suddenly made the ability to develop code and create tools and software significantly easier because it's actually really good at coding. It's really good at creating formulas for spreadsheets. So that's one area that I think is really worthwhile for you guys as business owners to sit up and pay attention and think about, all of the things that you wish you could get a Google sheet or an Excel sheet to do that you just haven't had the time to sit through and think about. ChatGPT can probably help you do that. It can probably help you write those formulas. Jasper and Writesonic, listed there under ChatGPT, are kind of a blend of what I would call a tech and a ChatGPT enabled tool. But the nice thing about those is that they are platforms that are plugged into the same engine, the same natural language processing platform, to use the fancy jargon. They're plugged into the same engine that ChatGPT runs off of, but they are a little more trained. So they're a little more user-friendly. They have a higher price point attached to them because of that fact. So the big rule of thumb here with any of the tools that we're discussing in the AI realm is that the more specific of an end result you're getting, the more training had to go into getting that tool to the point where it can give you that end result. And you're going to pay a little bit more for that result, right? You're paying for the fact that somebody cut out the learning curve. They have gone in and they've spent the time and they've developed the models and they've tested it and polished it so that you can get a nice, pretty end product. So if you want to go play around with and get started, I think that Jasper and Writesonic are really great places for you guys to kind of jump into the pool and get a feel for this landscape, because they have a lot of great templates. If you're interested in using some of these tools to help you write emails, help you write articles, help you write internal documents or first drafts for legal documents, using them to write standard operating procedures and things like that. There's a whole lot of things that these platforms have spent a lot of time testing and creating some really good kind of templates for you to just jump in and plug in what you need, and it'll give you a pretty nice end product already. So if it feels overwhelming, that's a really, really good place to start. On the left-hand side here, I have a couple of the big players listed. DALL-E 2, Stable Diffusion, and Midjourney are probably the biggest names that you might hear or you might be interested in checking out if you're curious about images. And I do have some examples of some different images later on. For our purposes in the painting industry and the skilled contracting space, the big thing about images is that it's going to make custom logo design, graphics, stock imagery, photography of any kind significantly cheaper. All of these industries have been really dramatically impacted by the fact that you can now go in and create some stuff really quickly and easily and of incredibly high quality. If you guys have any questions about any of these things, please feel free to drop them in the chat as I go along. There's a lot of ground we can cover here, but I want to make sure that it stays really relevant to everything that you guys are talking about. Jose has a really good question. Are the images still creepy? Definitely depends. I'm going to jump really quick back and show you. So these are a couple of images I created for the AI Craft for Contractors group. You guys can see how the hands are a little bit messed up here. The fingers look weird. That's the big thing. That was a big criticism for a lot of these image generators for a while. And I will show you some examples a little bit further in of some models that you can see still have slightly strange hands, but they've gotten significantly better. So these hands look a lot more normal. This looks a lot more like an actual portrait, even though I created this in about 5 minutes this morning before putting the finishing touches on the slide deck. So they can be creepy, but they're not nearly as creepy as you guys might think of. Best AI site to create marketing content. Patrick, it's always really good to see you. It really depends on what kind of marketing content you're interested in, but I would encourage you to either start with ChatGPT or start with Jasper or Writesonic. Jasper and Writesonic, you guys, are really similar to each other. I would say they're super, super competitive. Writesonic is a little bit cheaper. So if you're curious about jumping in, Writesonic is just a little more cost competitive right now. I also want to tell you guys, they're constantly updating and innovating these models for writing and creating content. The most recent model, the newest version, is going to have significantly different quality than the older versions. So if you're jumping into ChatGPT, the paid version of GPT right now, I think is about $20 a month, and it gets you access to GPT-4 as opposed to GPT-3.5. It's substantially better if you're using GPT-4, like big differences in the quality of what's being generated. So this is an area where if you're going to jump in, play around with it, or actually use it in your business, it's so cost effective that I really highly recommend that you actually go for a paid version instead of dealing with the frustration of a not quite as good version of what we have going on. Okay. Kind of a couple of quick thoughts about costs on some of these. Midjourney is probably one of the most expensive, but it is one of my favorite image generation tools. And it comes in at about $30 a month for me, while with a paid version, you can do some element of free work on these guys. It's just going to be limited. And there's quite a few other apps. I will get you guys plugged into some info towards the end of the presentation here about how to find some more repositories of different tools so that you can actually check out a lot of the different tools and things that are on the scene right now. My favorite site for graphic design is Canva. So I do a lot in Canva, and Canva is heavily AI enabled, which I'll talk about a little bit more here in a bit. And is GPT-4 better than Writesonic? Writesonic is actually plugged into the OpenAI GPT platform. So when you are using Writesonic, you are using ChatGPT. You're just using a more enhanced version of it. I pay about $300 a year for Writesonic right now. And that was like on an annual plan. And that's more capacity than I barely scratched the surface of how much, runway that gives me. It does give you the ability to shift back and forth between the older versions of ChatGPT and the newer version of ChatGPT, which is GPT-4. Writesonic also has the benefit that it has a chat feature that's connected to the internet. And so it has, and when I say connected to the internet, I mean it has up-to-date access to the internet and to Google Trends. That is one thing that ChatGPT does not have. The training modules and the access to information that ChatGPT has stops around the end of 2020 or 2021, I think. Writesonic, because you're paying for a slightly enhanced version of the tool, does have access to current information and data from Google, which can be really great for research purposes, or if you're trying to write, up-to-date comment. Jose is asking, does ChatGPT-4 not have that? Is that further down the pipeline that they will have that? Good question. I'm sure eventually they will. Right now, GPT-4 has so much demand that they're not super worried about increasing some of the functionality in that direction. They're really innovating as far as how well their tool writes, as opposed to plugging it into the internet, because it's so easy for other developers to plug it into the internet if they want. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, it's fine to just let other people do that step because they're working on harder problems, if that makes sense. Okay. So the big thing that I want to point out to you guys is that you've got to be aware of how AI-enabled things are impacting your day-to-day life every single day. And they have been for a really long time. And I think you guys are probably aware of this. So I just kind of want to run through the impact of AI in your day-to-day life and some of the ways that you're seeing it all of the time that you may or may not be aware of. So there's a lot of tools that have AI trained and integrated that are, and you're going to continue seeing these developments from probably every single tool that you're working with. So we've got the two big giants here. We've got Google and we've got Facebook. So Google as a search engine has always been playing with different types of AI in their search algorithms. So when we talk about, search engine optimization, SEO, and just being good at pulling up search results based on what you type in, that's a type of AI. That's a type of predictive algorithm. But even more so for us, that's super relevant is the ads platforms. So Facebook and Google ads platforms, and the algorithms for how they figure out what's relevant for people, how well your ads are going to rank, how well things are going to perform. Those are all different types of predictive algorithms that are very much impacted and enhanced by all of these developments in AI. One of the things that I would recommend, and I would be really curious to hear if any marketers in the room maybe disagree, you're generally going to be pretty well off and maybe better off by allowing these platforms to help you optimize based on their algorithm. So usually Google and Facebook, when you're building out ads, are going to have a couple of different options that they prompt you with, like recommend or optimization. And usually that can actually see some pretty big returns for you in terms of efficiency. Eric, what are your thoughts? Chime in with me.
Oh, this is a loaded topic. It really depends. There are certain things the platforms definitely want to incentivize you to do, right? Like I kind of talked about that in my presentation. And if you can play to those, the platforms, they reward you for it, right? We typically have, like on Facebook, a lower CPM and some of those other things, but they often will guide you in ways that don't lead you to the best performance, because the platforms will, they'll often try to give you like a dummy down, like a watered down version of it to make it easier for the inexperienced marketer. I forget the exact terminology, but Facebook and Google both do it, where they'll be like, here, set up it like with our assistance, like set it up this way, or manually set it up. And you'll always get the best results if you know what you're doing, manually setting it up.
Right.
Otherwise, we'll just kind of like, we'll do half it for you. And it's to make it easy, but that doesn't always get you.
That's a really, really good point. And I think that follows through to all of these different tools. So when I'm telling you guys a little bit more about these AI enabled tools that have these different like ChatGPT core engines integrated to them, they're walking you through how to get a particular end result. You're sacrificing customization, right? You're sacrificing some level of performance when that's the direction that you're going. So I kind of think of it also as like, if you're really into high performance vehicles and race cars, like if you buy something off the lot, you're going to get something that functions. It's going to get you from point A to point B. But if you're really interested in taking it to that next level of performance, you're going to be better off understanding the mechanics, understanding what pieces of it you might want to swap out, plug and play with, because you're going to be able to really fine tune that end result for what you're after. The last note that I have on here for this page is the combination of Bing. I don't know how many of us actually recognize the Bing logo these days, but Bing, and this is the OpenAI logo. And I wanted to mention this because up until now, Google has been the really big titan in the search engine space, Facebook, obviously in the social media space, but and Meta. But Bing is actually one of the early investors. Microsoft is one of the early investors in OpenAI, who's really the market leader for AI right now for generative AI. And because of that, we're seeing some really, really interesting innovation in the search engine space. So I really want to put a note in there because as far as being relevant for us as contractors, this means that Bing is becoming more and more relevant as a search engine. It's going to behoove you as a business owner to set up the equivalent of that Google My Business profile on Bing, just kind of be prepared for how the shifts in the market are taking place. And Bing is doing a lot to integrate chat, kind of a Siri-like entity, Alexa-like entity into their search engine. And Google is now kind of chasing at the feet of what Bing and Microsoft are doing in that regard. So Google's kind of trying to keep up. You guys might have heard of some of the AI platforms that Google is working on, things like Bard, in my opinion, not nearly as good as some of these other tools that I've been mentioning, which is why I don't heavily feature them here. A couple of quick questions in the chat. Have we migrated to Microsoft and Outlook since the software is better and they can integrate with Microsoft products? Like I said, I definitely recommend keeping a foot in both worlds. From my perspective, I do a lot of testing. I do most of my work in ChatGPT itself because it's sort of that core engine. And I do a lot of development and kind of playing around with prompt engineering in there. But I've been trying to pay really close attention to the developments on the Microsoft side and how that's impacting different types of lead generation. So some other examples of AI-enabled tools that you guys are interacting with on a day-to-day basis. Things like Gmail, how Gmail recommends stuff. There's a lot of different plugins now that are becoming more available that are going to help you potentially rewrite text or rewrite emails or, predictively help you actually sort through and answer things in your inbox. And like I mentioned earlier, Google Sheets. There's a cool little plugin now or an extension that you can get that's called GPT for Sheets that you could play around with. And all that's doing is making it a lot easier for you to take the formula writing capabilities of ChatGPT and plug that straight into Google Sheets. And so it's like super powering your spreadsheet performance. Anybody who's into that. ChatGPT and these other writing platforms are also really good at coming up with what we call tabularized versions of things, which means table versions of things. So if you have questions about itineraries or like diet plans on the personal side or anything you can think of that you would want displayed in a spreadsheet like Excel, all you have to do is ask ChatGPT or these other text generators to tabularize or make it into a spreadsheet format. And it'll do that for you so that you can copy and paste things into spreadsheets really easily. So that's one of the easiest areas to just start working with these tools and start to see some immediate leverage. Ephraim, you asked earlier about graphic design. Canva is still my absolute winner. It's super cost effective to have a pro version of Canva, you guys, if you haven't dived into it yet. Canva is the platform that most of your graphic designers are using, most of the people that you're paying. So again, like knowing how to manage the professionals that you're paying, this is one of the most popular platforms for logo design and for flyers and postcards. And there's a ton of AI that's been built into the platform. So Canva has the ability to create text generation. There's a few different cool walkthroughs. We have some posted in the AI Craft for Contractors group that are teaching you how to like bulk create Instagram posts and things like that within Canva. And one of the things I like about Canva is that they've been really smart about focusing on AI-enabled photo editing. So anything that you've thought of before that you'd like to do some simple photo editing, putting logos on things, taking shadows out of photos, removing backgrounds from stock images and things. There's great background removers. There's great magic erasers. There's even some really cool things that Canva is working on to try to make it so you can actually swap out items and photos and things like that. So there's some really cool technology that's being integrated into this platform, and it's super cost effective to hop in and play with it. So we've got some really cool stuff in the chat. The Facebook group is called AI Craft for Contractors, and I have a QR code for you guys here in just a second to make it easy for you, and I'll drop it in chat as well. So a couple more things that I just want to put on your radar. And like I mentioned, I'll get you guys access to the slide deck so you can go back and look at all of the things that I referenced. These are some of the tools that I'm using and I'm recommending that people use more consistently in their businesses because they're really good on how AI enabled they are. And the fact that they have adopted and integrated some different AI functions has really boosted the functionality of these. So one of the tools that I have been talking about a whole lot for years is loom.com. And I'd say its buddy is otter.ai. So some of you guys might have seen these two. What these two tools are really doing and what I think is so innovative about them is that they're both recording platforms. So Loom is for recording videos and sharing for communication purposes. So you can screen share, you can record stuff with your phone. Otter.ai is focused on just recording audio. So it's great for Zoom meetings. It's great for coaching. It's great for team meetings that you guys might be hosting. But what both of them are doing is they're using AI as a transcription tool, as a note-taking tool. So every conversation that you're having in these platforms is being written out like a script by the AI. And they're taking it a step further. So they're actually making it really easy to search videos that you might have been making by keyword, summarize the things that you're making. Because they're turning your conversations or your training videos into a script, Suddenly it's really easy to take those scripts, plug it into something like ChatGPT and have it convert it into an SOP, and then take the next step and convert that SOP into a spreadsheet walkthrough. And then you can just start creating a knowledge management system in your business. And what used to take you hours to do is now taking you 20 minutes, as long as you're just being smart about turning on the recorder anytime you're having a conversation about something in your business. So I'm a really, really big fan of both of these tools for applications like that. So I really encourage you guys to check them out. They're also really cost effective. So kind of some quick use cases, like I mentioned, Loom is really great for especially any kind of back office and admin training that you're doing, because you can screen share, you can create videos, you can talk through things. And it basically gives you the power. If you can talk through it, you can convert it into a written document. You can create an SOP. You can create summaries for it. So it's really, really great. Now, this is talking about stacking some of the functionality from these tools a little bit. But I think you guys can get a really good idea based on what's the features that are currently in that platform. Otter.ai, kind of similar. As a coach and a consultant, I use it extensively every time I'm in a Zoom room. For business owners, I really recommend that you guys use this for team meetings. I recommend it for any kind of trainings that you're doing, so you make sure that you're getting the most value. Stop wasting time taking notes by hand and let the robot do it for you, and go in and take a look at the summaries that the AI writes for you. So it's really good at coming up with like an itinerary from a meeting. Otter.ai is actually really good at distinguishing between voices and writing things like a script and a dialogue. So you can see who said what, you can search by keyword, you can search by name, and it just makes it so much easier to access all of the information that we're having to juggle and deal with all the time. One of the things that I mentioned to a lot of the people that I coach is to have your team put something like Otter.ai on their phones and have them turn in recordings from sales calls in the field. That's a really easy application that can save some time and efficiency on ride-alongs. It's not a complete replacement, but it gives you a little bit more of an opportunity to check in on what they're doing, what those conversations with customers are looking like. It gives you a little bit more material to coach from as a business leader. So that's just one example of one of the ways that I've encouraged people to deploy something like Otter in their business. And if you need a witness for any kind of conversation that you're having, there's no better witness and no better accountability than something like Otter. I was super excited to see that Dripjobs has integrated AI into the platform. So that was an awesome announcement that came out this week. Again, stay plugged in to the professionals and to the tools that are innovating. At this point in the game, any professional that I'm going to hire to do something like marketing, that I'm going to hire to do something like graphic design, or any of these tools that I would consider bringing into my business or advising another business to incorporate, I would be asking them questions about how they're staying up to date with these technological updates. And if they're not, that's a huge red flag, right? Because there's so much going on here to help with efficiency that you would definitely want to, just stay abreast of how these things are being incorporated to make your life even easier. I have a reference to one tool here called Chatbase. Chatbase is actually one of many of a really cool type of chatbot creator. So you guys have seen chatbots on websites before. In the past, these guys used to be pretty annoying to go in and actually have to like program. Like somebody would have to write a script and they'd have to go through the whole back and forth about potential responses. These chatbots have gotten really, really smart now. There's a lot of ability for people who have some sophistication with them to integrate them into your website. And they're really good at being dynamic, of feeling like you're having a conversation with a person, but pointing people in particular directions, or being trained on information about your business or information about your website so that they give better answers than ever. Chatbase is one of the things that I've been playing around with, because what they call it it's a PDF trained chatbot. And the idea here is that you have kind of a closed chatbot. You can integrate it into a website, or you can just have a hyperlink to it. But the idea is that you feed it information and it becomes an expert on all of the information that you feed it. This is a little bit unique from just tapping into something like ChatGPT, because it's trained on what you want it to know. And now it's going to be more applicable and specific to your use case. So a good example of this is I've been working with some industry partners to take things like industry standards and craftsmanship operating procedures and actually train chatbots on some of those things and testing those items so that it becomes more relevant as a guide for your team. So it could be really good for internal use or for business owners that have questions about particular things. What literally used to be 100 different PDF documents that were maybe 50, 60, 100 pages in length, exhaustive material is now all of a sudden a much easier to communicate with little expert in your pocket that you can actually have a conversation with. And kind of like Eric was talking about earlier, you can give it different tone. You can make it more interesting to talk to. You can tell it to tone things down to a 3rd grade reading level or an 8th grade reading level. It's really good at converting things to Spanish and English and back. That's one of the things it does really well. So those are some of the applications that we're working on. I have some different actual painters, members of the Contractor Lab coaching group that we host as part of the Pro Painter Network, who we've been experimenting around with plugging their own internal operating manuals and procedural manuals into this and just creating a little internal tool based on the documents that they've built out for their business. So you can see how you can layer some of these tools to really get some great impact. And I think eventually we're going to see that every business is going to have little versions of these assistants that they're using all the time. And these are pretty cost effective right now for you to just jump in, play around with. Something like Chatbase is super user friendly from what I found so far. So I wanted to mention that one, but there's a few different tools that do similar things. If you look for PDF chatbots or something like that. On the right-hand side here, this is getting a little bit more into the space of content creation, but I know a lot of you guys are interested in that. There's a lot of people that might do podcasts or they want to create little clips of things for their social media. So these are some AI integrated tools that are making things like video editing significantly easier. Content Fries and Descript are both video editing platforms. What they've done is kind of like Loom and Otter do. You upload a video and it'll turn it into a text script, and then you can actually edit the video by editing the script. You go in and you just delete a line and it'll fix the video, or it'll have an auto search. It can identify all of the ums and the filler words and the gaps and the pauses, and it'll, like that, erase those all from a video. It also makes it really easy for you to scan through and highlight things. So if you want to make little Instagram reels, if you want to have some stuff that you want to really quickly churn out for your Facebook, these are some really great places to start. I definitely recommend Content Fries. It is a little more cost effective. And then on the other side of this, if you're paying people to do video editing, which you probably should be, if you're creating any content like training videos or stuff for your social media, be on the lookout for experts that are using tools like this, because you know how much more efficiently people can do those projects when they're using tools like this. And that means cost savings for you. So if you're smart about some of these tools, who's using them and how, then that can lead to a lot of cost savings for you guys. And then just sort of a note for some intrigue here, 11 Labs is the name of one of the industry leaders right now for creating clones of your voice. So if you wanted to do audio in a video, if you wanted to create a podcast that wasn't actually you talking, it was you just plugging in a script, 11 Labs is one of the industry leaders right now for generating a voice for you, or actually copying the voice that you currently have and doing a really good fake version of it or an avatar of you. So I just kind of mentioned that because it's a neat one if you have an interest and you want to go check it out. So that's a lot of ground that I've covered with you guys today around where you should be looking for tools and some of the impact that AI is having on those tools. I want to take a minute and just leave this more boring slide up for you guys with 2 different QR codes. So the first QR code here is access to this slide deck. So if you want to go back and you want to reference just the images and kind of look at some of the stuff that I posted on here, that QR code should take you to a view only version of the slide deck. The other one that you might want to stick around in for more consistent updates, or to go check out the conversations and the walkthroughs that we've been having, is the AI Craft for Contractors Facebook group. So this link will take you right over to the Facebook group. I will also post the link to this slide deck in the Facebook group, and I will actually post the link to this slide deck in the chat right here for you guys as well to make that a little bit easier. So that first link coming your way is to the slide deck, and the second link coming your way is going to be the AI Craft for Contractors group, if you guys want to hop in. If you want to stay in touch with me, Facebook is definitely one of the best ways to do that. You can find me at Morgan Knox on Facebook. You can email me, morgan@propainernetwork.com. If you have any questions, you can text me. That's my direct line. So feel free to stay in touch. I'll send you a downloadable copy of my contact card. Like I mentioned, all that info will stay here on this slide deck. This is just a really cool space, you guys. There's a lot of ways that it can help us in our businesses. And so I've always been really excited to teach about it. I don't have final details for it at the moment, but I am working on an outline for hosting a deep dive into AI for your contracting business that I'm hoping to host as a virtual event this fall. So that is something that if you want to stay in touch with me about, hopping into the AI Craft for Contractors Facebook group is where I will post the information about that as details become available. But that is where I will have a lot more runway to dive into some deep information, like how to prompt engineer and how to actually get some really, really good end results for the things that you want, how to actually deploy some of the tools that I'm talking about and the best practices. So I have some notes on those things written in here for anyone that's interested in just kind of checking those out. I do post walkthroughs and tutorials in that Facebook group. So do other people. So that's a really cool place to stay in touch with that info. And I told you guys that I'd show you guys some examples of some AI generated artwork and images. So showed you guys this photo before. This is a really good time for you guys to drop any questions that you have in the chat, and I'll hop in on those in a second. Tryitonai.com is really good at taking selfies and then converting them to more polished headshot versions of themselves. So I use that for a lot of professional headshots now. Think about how you could use that for your team. It costs about $17 to create. Usually the model is going to give you at least 30 really good headshots based on the selfies that you put into it. So that's a really great way to save on photography costs, but get some great polished headshots for your team if you wanted to do something like that. Like I mentioned before, this is really changing the landscape for stock images. So I literally spent 20 minutes playing around with Midjourney this morning and generated some examples of some interior design, kind of painting or finishing focused interior design photography shots. So this gives you an idea of how you guys could leverage tools like this for your advertisements, for your websites to make them look really, really high quality. These are just some examples of things that you could be posting or including with your advertisements, your promotions, your newsletters to stoke some inspiration. And here are some with models. You can see how good the photos look, super photorealistic. The headshot site is called tryitonai.com. Drop that into chat. Hey, you guys, it's good to see you. So Jose is asking, can Canva replace Corel, Adobe, After Effects, and Premiere? I can't speak to whether it can replace them because I haven't been a hugely detailed user of CorelDRAW, Adobe, After Effects, and Premiere. My husband actually does use CorelDRAW really extensively for laser engraving. One of the fun features that we've done was we've used AI to create vector graphics that we convert with CorelDRAW, and we actually create custom laser engravings with them. So there's a lot of different kind of functionalities for fabrication and 3D printing outside of the scope of a lot of what we're doing in business. But it does, I also do frequently use Canva as a first step before importing things into Corel. Adobe and After Effects, I think, are integrating AI really actively. I know for a fact Adobe is. I haven't seen anything from Corel doing that, but Corel tends to be a little bit behind the curve on development anyway. And then Jose, you asked, because I have a background in accounting with new ChatGPT functionality with Excel and data. Is it released yet? What are we looking forward to? So yeah, there's a lot of functionality already in these engines for spreadsheet formation. One of the things that I do on the consulting project side is a lot of mergers and acquisitions consulting, some business valuations, and I definitely lean pretty heavily on ChatGPT to help me quickly generate spreadsheets, do market research, cite sources for different information on valuations, create templates that are easy for people to follow and kind of play around with as calculators. So that functionality is currently inside of ChatGPT. You just have to ask it for what you want, kind of copy and paste it over into your spreadsheet tool of choice. And then I think we're heading into kind of the last few minutes here, you guys. And I do have a hard stop in about 5 minutes because I have to head to another call. I will be back for the breakthrough panel later today. So if you guys have more discussion questions, and I'm going to leave this slideshow here for the last couple of minutes if you guys want to use those QR codes for anything.
Yo, this was awesome. I took some notes down on a couple of things. I'm literally messaging my team right now about Midjourney, and I'm like, yo, we should check this out. So this is freaking awesome, guys. Everybody, drop an emoji in the chat for Morgan, because she went over all sorts of cool stuff. Go join that Facebook group. I don't know many people in the painting space going this deep into AI. So
yeah,
I appreciate sharing everything.
And I almost have to extend an apology that we have to go so fast and furious for something like this. An hour is just not enough time to go deep in the weeds with you guys on like walkthroughs and right seat, left seat on stuff. So that's what I tried to do and bring into that Facebook group and more in-person stuff that we try to do through the contractor lab or some of the events that we're hosting. Chris Mole, I did see your question fly by there about what's best for cartoon material, like for creating. I was doing some stuff recently for Chris Mole too, actually, that looked like the style of Pixar animation. Midjourney is great for that. So anywhere that you're jumping into playing around with some of that image generation stuff, play around with different styles. And like you were touching on before, Eric, that's actually how I get really good copywriting. And I actually think you can get fantastic copywriting out of ChatGPT if you know how to prompt it properly with styles. And one of my big tricks there is prompting it with expert personalities. So for kind of a quick tip for you guys, when you're working on trying to create anything, I really like to invoke the name of famous, prolific copywriters of the past. So there's a couple of those folks, Eugene Schwartz, David Ogilvy, Frank Kern, Dan Kennedy. Those are some really, really famous copywriters that you could pull in, but anyone that you know and that you like the tone and the voice of. I've had really good luck with imitating Alex Hormozy's talking, speaking, writing style. I actually, in a contractor lab session the other day, we were playing around with blog post topics. We had it recommend like 5 different business development blog posts. And then we were playing around with different personalities, and somebody recommended, like, can it imitate Jordan Belfort from The Wolf of Wall Street? So we seeded it with that personality from the Wolf of Wall Street movie. Jordan Belfort writes some really good blog posts, you guys. There was some really, really good content that came out of it.
That's awesome. Very, very similar, yeah, to what we've done a little bit. That's genius, pulling in some of those expert personalities to some of that. I freaking love it. But also, like, I think for everybody listening too, like, just if this doesn't show you like how you can leverage some creativity in your marketing, in some of these efforts and some of the stuff you're doing, like there's no excuses anymore. Like you don't have good photos for your marketing. Go to Midjourney. Like you don't have good whatever. There's just so many tools and resources out there. It's just up to you to be creative and leverage some of this new technology and learn it.
Exactly. And when you're hiring an expert, it's just the cost of expertise is diminishing. It's a really, really interesting time to observe the impact on industry.
I love it. Amazing. Well, Morgan, I know you got to run just a couple minutes. I appreciate you. Tanner appreciates you. We all do, for sharing all of your knowledge.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Absolutely. So guys, we got Steve coming up. I won't talk for too long, but real quick, I do need to plug this because I'm going to forget stuff. Today, when this is over, 3:30 p.m., me and Austin from Base Coat Marketing, we're hosting a little after party. Okay. It's going to be fun. BYOB. It's going to be chill, right? These are like the deep dive sessions where, we're going into presentations, hardcore questions. Our brains are going to be fried when we're done with this. So come around at 3:30, come hang out. It's going to be just a round table. We're going to hang out, chill. We can talk questions, talk industry, talk marketing, ask a marketer live, right? It'll be kind of that style. We'll just hang out live, me and Austin, answer all your guys' questions, hang out, and it'll be a lot of fun. But other than that, keep sticking around with us. We got an awesome session coming up.